Welcome in to another edition of the Jungle Juice podcast. I'm Sam Gormley. He's Mick Nelson. And Mick, we made the comment last week that we'd been very happy about having all of these Victory Wednesdays, and we got to have happy podcasts and everything. And then I was going back and listening, and it was funny. Like, we were talking it all up, and then I said, by us talking this all up, we're going to have to put a foot in our mouth. And I don't remember if what you said is if I could put my foot in my mouth, I would. And, well, I guess we're both going to have to do that because it's no longer a happy podcast today.
No, it's not. It's a very sad podcast after a very unfortunate loss against Houston. Oh, man. Got brought back down to earth a little bit after that game, I'd say.
Yeah, and I mean, it's something that we're obviously going to talk a lot about here on today's show. We are going to recap that game with the good, the bad, and the ugly from that one. And then tomorrow is quite possibly, the biggest game of the season for the Cincinnati Bengals as they take on the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday Night Football. We're going to let you know everything about that. I've got some good stats for that game, some that might make you feel better about it, some that might make you feel a little bit worse. I'm kind of coming, Mick, with like a left-hand hook and a right-hand hook. I guess a left-hand hook that's going to bring you down, and I guess the right-hand hook that's going to bring you back up. So I have that later on in the show for you. But first, let's go into some of the news of the week for the Bengals. I think what we want to start with is, as I wrote here on my sheet, we're going to talk more about specific injuries later on in the injury report when we talk about it. But there's one guy that somehow is not on the injury report, and I just have here listed, Trey Hendrickson is a maniac. The man hyperextended his knee on Sunday. They come out, I think Adam Schefter's tweet said he'll be out a couple of weeks, and the man says, screw you, I'm not even questionable 3 days later. He is a maniac.
Yeah, that man just lives and breathes, terrorizing opposing quarterbacks. Let's not forget that he broke his hand or his wrist last year.
And missed one game.
Yeah, missed one game, played with a club for like 3 or 4 games, and didn't really miss a beat. Now, hyperextension of the knee sounds a little more limiting than the wrist injury. I don't know what you're thinking about that, but
yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
Here's the thing with Trey Hendrickson. I would never put anything past him because, like I said, the man is a maniac. Like, it is unreal as to how, I mean, he's had back injuries. He's had this injury. He's had that. Hasn't he had something with his neck, like a stinger or a shoulder? And those are just the things that he's mentioned. Like, who knows what else the man is going through? And if anything else, I think what this message says is that, and we'll talk more obviously about the Ravens game specifically later on in the show, but what this tells me is that he knows this game is really important, and that should be a message to the team itself, and you want that from your leaders.
Yeah. It's like you said, this is a must-win game. I know you don't like wearing the must-win armband or whatever every game, but I don't mind doing it, especially when, your season is largely determined by this. I saw something along the lines of, if they win this game, they have a 70% chance of making the playoffs. And if they lose it, they've got, 35% chance of making the playoffs. So, I mean, this game's crucial. You can't go 0-3 in the division. I mean, they did it last year, but you don't want to do that again. 5-5 sounds a lot different than 6-4. So Trey knows it, and I think the whole team knows it. I'm hoping they're going to come ready to play tomorrow.
We are going to talk more about the game specifically a little bit later on. But we thank everyone for tuning in to today's episode of Jungle Juice, as we are streaming today on the Jungle Juice podcast Facebook page, on the YouTube channel. Also give a shout out to our guy over at WDN Today, Josh Isles. We're streaming on his Facebook page. Make sure you follow, subscribe to all of that. And then we're also on all of your favorite podcasting platforms, on iHeart, on Spotify, Apple. We've got it all. And Mick, I think today we had a listener and it's a consistent listener, and I think it was Poland in Warsaw So I like to bring you our city of the day. So shout out to Warsaw, Poland, and you've been consistently listening. So whoever you are, we appreciate you listening each and every week via the I'm not sure if you listen on Spotify, on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, iHeart, however it is. Give you a shout out. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
But as we get on to the show today, one of the other things we wanted to talk about is we'd like to start the show with some of our news topics. And one of the biggest news pieces isn't necessarily Bengals news, but it is something that affects the Bengals, and that is Deshaun Watson. Today it was announced that he's out for the season. As the Cleveland Browns quarterback, they're ahead of the Bengals in the standings. They've beaten the Bengals. The Bengals will play them again this year. Mick, that's big news.
Yeah, and all I can say in regards to that news is that, Baker didn't let a shoulder injury keep him from playing the rest of the season.
I'm glad you went that route. I thought you were going to make a massage joke.
No, we'll keep it clean for the families.
Okay.
For the family, friendly crowd that listens here. But
low-hanging fruit, I guess.
Baker played through a shoulder injury, and the Browns, moved on from him the next season. Really good organization.
Yeah, and it's hard for, I always hate. I'm never the guy that wants to make fun of guys when they get injured. That's just not who I am. I don't care who it is. You want the players to succeed. But it's Deshaun Watson. It's almost like, because it seems like he's had a couple of those injuries and hasn't wanted to push it at all. It's that trade for the Browns continues to look worse and worse as the days goes along. And even more so that they have all of that money guaranteed to Deshaun Watson.
They sold their souls, and it's not working out for him so far. I know they're 6-3 and whatever, but he hasn't played a lot of the season. He's I think created a decent amount of drama in the locker room, and now he's out for the rest of the year. And I know we shouldn't root on players to get injured, and I guess I don't know if I'm rooting on that with Deshaun. I'm saying that very reluctantly. Exceptions apply, I guess. They apply. Best of luck to DTR.
Yeah, and I mean, who knows? It's not like Deshaun Watson has been playing at an MVP level or anything like that, where this is a massive loss. And the best part is
really good the past couple, his past couple of starts. He has looked really good throwing the ball.
Yeah, but it's not like, and then the pro is, if you're a guy like DTR who's coming in and starting, is what do you want as a young quarterback making some of your real first career starts? You want a really, really good defense. Yeah, Browns have that.
You got
check.
That. You want a good run game.
Pretty good. Yep. Check. And so you're seeing that some decent wide receivers and pass catchers. Check. Pretty good offensive line. Check. So they got the pieces still, even if they don't necessarily have the quarterback to lead the way.
Yeah, I kind of feel for DTR a little bit too, and not to stay on this topic much too longer, but his first start was against a really good Ravens defense, and they just they just annihilated him, and now he's got to go up against Pittsburgh this week. So, welcome to the NFL, DTR.
Welcome to the NFL is right. Let's. I guess we have to, don't we? Sunday, 1 o'clock. We got to talk about it. Bengals lose to the Houston Texans 30-27. Mick and I were both, and as the game got closer and closer, I don't know if I said it out loud to you, Mick, or not, but I think I told somebody that I said, I don't like how confident I am. I felt like my confidence was making me feel worse about the game as it got closer. And it's still, weirdly enough, and I might be the only one in saying this, is it never felt like the Bengals were going to still lose the game. No. But yet they were down by 10.
With 3 minutes left.
And yet it still found like a way, because I know that all of the people started to leave, and I think you kind of looked at me and said, "Are we going to?" And I was like, "No, I mean, listen, we paid the money.
We're already stayed.
Yes, because it was a exciting ending, but it never felt like that they were going to lose the game until, to me, the pass over the middle to Noah Brown with however much seconds left in the game, and that's when I knew it was over.
Yeah. Kudos to the Texans, by the way. Texans
Yeah,
played a great game. They have a very young team that showed a lot of poise. Their offensive line held up very well against our pass rush. CJ Stroud, um, I was definitely a doubter going into the season, going into the draft. The Ohio State quarterbacks usually have this stigma that they're in such an advantageous system offense with Ryan Day running things over in Columbus that they don't necessarily translate well to the NFL. But CJ Stroud has proven, I think, all of his doubters, including me, wrong. He's so accurate with the football, shows a lot of poise in the pocket, and made a lot of clutch throws. With that being said, the defense did look like trash. They looked really bad on Sunday.
it did. So let's go into the specifics of, like we like to always separate it into the good, the bad, and the ugly. I'll start and go with the good. And for me, the first one with that is, what back injury? Jamar Chase, 5 catches, 124 yards. It didn't look like he was. I mean, you could tell he wasn't quite 100%, but for me, he goes into the good because he gave it a go. He probably maybe shouldn't have played, but he knew that the team needed him, and he comes away with 5 catches for 124 yards, including a catch that at one moment thought would have been the catch that finally brought them in the end of the game, and then the defense decided that they don't know how to play football. But again, I think we're going to get to that in a later category here in a few minutes, but I think Jamar definitely goes into the good category.
Yeah, Jamar was great in the game. The back injury definitely kind of showed a little bit, but made a couple of really crucial catches. Obviously, the 50-yard bomb to end the third quarter, and then he had one other catch that, that drive ended up being the goal line interception by Burrow, but he had one really good catch on that drive as well that I think probably ripped off 30 something yards on that play. So, I mean, he had a really good game. Another name I want to bring up, and I know the drops were bad, but Tyler Boyd did have a pretty good game on Sunday. Was great in the underneath game, and obviously had that 60-yard catch and run to set up the field goal. It sucked that he couldn't come down with that ball in the end zone, and he also had a very crucial drop on third down on one of the 3-and-out drives. But other than those 2 drops, I think he had a pretty good game.
Yeah, I was going back and forth between putting him in the good and the bad. I personally put him in the bad, but it was like bad plus. Like we almost needed a category we almost needed a category in between good and the bad, because I felt bad putting him in there because it's hard to be bad and have 8 catches for 117 yards. But then again, as I was thinking back, is the Tyler Boyd drop in a way was similar to the Irv Smith fumble in the red zone against the Niners.
Yeah.
It was a back-breaking moment for the game. There's no question about that. It's probably a catch that Tyler Boyd will, if that same play happened 100 more times, I bet Tyler Boyd makes that catch 97 times. He's a sure-handed wide receiver. That's kind of what he's always been in his career. It just didn't happen. And sometimes it just doesn't happen. Like there's no reason for it. But 8 catches, 117 yards. It's hard to criticize him much more than that.
Yeah. Tanner Hudson, another good game from him. He's kind of proven to be that security blanket for Joe Burrow in the short passing game. It looks like he's definitely the tight end that Burrow has the most trust in when throwing the ball to. He has the most length out of everybody. Seems to be able to just high point the ball really well. Now he's not very good after the catch. His RAC is not that great. He's not really breaking tackles, but he was very crucial to the success of that first drive, catching 5 balls for 30 something yards. So he had a pretty decent game, I think.
To me, another one of the good is Brad Robbins.
Yes.
Averaged 51.8 yards a punt. Maybe his best overall game. He was letting them fly in a day that was not necessarily super windy, but it also wasn't not windy. Like there were some definite wind gusts in there, and also against in Paycor Stadium on the river, the wind, we've seen it where it just sometimes takes some weird gusts in that stadium. But I mean, 51.8 yards a punt. I just say, hey, Brad, give me that every game the rest of your career. And I know that's easier said than done, but that's why you drafted him in the 6th round.
Yeah,
is for games like that.
Yeah, for sure.
As far as others in the good, I didn't really have anybody else.
Yeah, I thought Logan Wilson was okay. Was pretty good. In coverage as opposed to a lot of the other defensive backs and linebackers. Obviously, his bull rush to CJ Stroud caused that fumble in the second quarter, which was huge. And with the coverage woes and everything, CDB did have the clutch pick and was the highest graded guy in coverage, which wasn't saying too much, but it wasn't, terrible. It wasn't bad. It wasn't, so I can't put it in the bad category. It's probably an okay category, I guess, but not a lot of good other than those select few players and Joe Burrow. We got to talk about Joe Burrow, I guess. I'm guessing you're throwing him in the bad category.
See, that's another one that I was kind of going back and forth on because Burrow had really good moments. And then he had, and I know he had said that at least one of the picks, I was listening to him talk yesterday, was we're losing, I need to make a play. I think it was pretty much his
second pick.
Yes, was pretty much what he had said. But it was a back-breaking interception. There's no question about that. But it's also one of those things that we can always say, and I mean, you can say this about every, play in sports is, if it had worked, you'd have liked it. Like.
There is no way that throw is going to work.
Yes, and that's kind of why I shift him into I think he's in my, bad plus with Tyler Boyd. Like, it wasn't quite bad. It wasn't good. But I don't know.
I thought Joe Burrow was pretty good for most of the game. Now, this might have been his highest turnover-worthy play game, though, that I've seen from Joe Burrow, because although he only had the 2 picks, he had a pretty bad down the field pass in the second quarter that easily could have been picked off, and then had another one on the it was one of his first throws on the second pick drive that when they were on their own side of the field where where he was just gambling and threw it into triple coverage again. So that second interception though, that was brutal. But it seems like Burrow is either making ill-advised throws or he was dropping absolute dimes. It was a little bit of an inconsistent game.
The pass on the first touchdown to Trenton Irwin was a dime.
That was so. The only throw, I think, it reminded me a lot of Jamar's, I think, first touchdown against San Francisco in 2021. Round concept where you go, you're sending your slot guy on an out and you're sending the outside guy on a go. And, pretty much, threw the ball right on the money, right to the right pylon, pretty much, Trenton Irwin. That was a great ball.
And see, the wildest part is that I don't think it was his best throw of the game. I think his best throw of the game has to go on the Jamar Chase deep ball.
Yeah.
The fact that he was, and I loved rewatching. That was the only one that I got to see the All-22 of. Because I'm not rich like you, Mick, and can afford to watch the All-22. Because I'm just a lowly radio guy. If you want to donate, we'll put out a jar.
Go fund me.
But was the Jamar play, and Jamar was just almost just slowly working, and you could immediately tell that connection that they have, because there was a moment when he realized, oh, and he looked up and saw it, kind of the Red Sea part, and just took off deep. And Burrow found
he
him
was running a
and was
drag
rolling
route
out.
on that play.
Yes.
He was running a drag.
He was not going deep at all.
No, that really speaks to the connection that those guys have. Totally agree with you there. I don't know if that was Joe's. I still think the Irwin throw was better, but I think the play, because I kind of separate the throw and the play a little bit, but the fact that, Joe was able to get out of the rush and, find some open space in the backfield and chuck it deep. And obviously Jamar knew what to do in that situation. I mean, that was, I don't think that had to have been like, I don't know, very similar to that Packers play in 2021, the end of half. Very similar plays, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think Joe, for the most part, was pretty good.
Do you have anybody that pops up for you in the bad, or should we just shift right into the ugly? And always too is, if I can say, is if you watching alone, if you have anybody that we might have missed that you think deserves to be talked about in the good or the bad, feel free to drop the comment and we'll tell you whether you're right or wrong or what, because we like doing that, as you like to. Did you let Anthony know that we're on today, Mick?
No, he's too busy looking at the sleeper chat.
I'm not talking about Anthony, the one that you know. I'm talking about our number one fan last week. Wasn't his name Anthony?
Oh, I don't remember.
Oh,
I did not let that guy know.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. Did you have anybody else though in the bad, or should we shift to the ugly?
I'll put the pass rush in the bad. They got home to CJ Stroud a few times, but it wasn't enough to really make a difference in the game. They obviously didn't really come up clutch on third down, but DJ Reader's pass rush game was pretty decent. He actually graded in the elite category, according to PFF. And you can see he definitely made a difference up the middle, but the edge rushers weren't all too great. But I think DJ and BJ had a pretty solid game up the middle. But
I did appreciate too. I don't know if you saw. I don't know if it was a post in the Houday Nation Facebook group or in another one, that somebody was giving their opinion on what the defense should look like the rest of the season. And their way to fix this was to put DJ defense end. I was just, that's not how it works.
Yeah, I don't think that's the best of ideas there.
It just made me laugh. I was like, I just want to see Trey Hendrick or DJ Reader go up against Ronnie Stanley or something or whatever. Not that you're going to ding him, but still.
You're not going to see that anyways.
Yes, exactly.
Patrick McCarry.
Foreshadowing. That's what we call that.
Yeah. Anyways, but yeah, the pass rush or the front four, I'll probably put in the bad category, and then everything else is in the ugly category.
Ooh. Yeah. Let's go defense specifically. See, pass rush 1 sack against a rookie quarterback. Like, a lot of that goes to props to the offensive line of the Texans, and also to CJ Stroud. But that's tough. But I mean, you look at these, and here are the two numbers. Texans average 5.5 yards a rush, 15.5 yards per carry.
The run defense was very disappointing.
That's being nice.
It was bad.
Atrocious.
I on a second rewatch that I watched a little bit before the show, Devin Singletary looked like he was getting into the second level on almost every play. And I know I was giving a little bit of props to the pass rush and to the front four, and to DJ Reader, because his pass rush was really good. His tackling up the middle, he couldn't tackle Devin Singletary for minimal gains. And
it's not like Devin Singletary is a great running back.
No, I mean he's a thumper. He's a little bit of a shifty guy too. He's probably the best running back in that backfield this year, which isn't saying much. But
he's not. He's nowhere near some of the running backs they faced
CMC.
this year.
They handled CMC just fine.
Yeah, Derrick. He's not Derrick Henry. Now I know Derrick Henry had a big game, but but still. Let's see here. Dennis writes in and says, I think there's two things that have to happen for the Bengals to win. I guess he's talking about on Thursday. Joe Burrow has to play out of his head like an MVP, and Zach Taylor with a better ball play calling. If none of those things happen, nothing is impossible. The Bengals could win. Appreciate the comment, Dennis. I want to come back to the Zach Taylor thing in just a moment. For me, I think us ripping on the defense is almost obvious, Mick. Like if you at home, you watched the game, you saw it, you were thinking the same thing as us. It was bad. But here's the wild thing, Mick, is it was bad, and they forced, 3 turnovers?
So they really forced 2. The one of the fumbles was a bad snap. You can't. I mean,
Correct.
yeah,
but
they
you got
fell
3.
on they got good luck on that one.
That's what makes me go. So what on 2 of those 3, they were. I mean, one was in the red zone, on the fumbled snap. The other, I think it was 4th down though, was it not? If my memory's right on that.
Yeah,
it was 4th down, and then the other one was driving. And then and obviously the CTB one was late in the game and probably shouldn't have thrown the ball to begin with. But it's one of those things that makes you go, though, this game could have been a whole lot worse because they easily could have put more points up on the board, and we never would have been talking about them having a chance to come back late in the game.
Yeah, there are a couple drives where they got absolutely lucky on. I mean, that failed snap, the Texans were in the red zone marching down, about to get at least some type of points on the board. That was one drive where they were lucky on. The other fumble they forced, it was a good call by Lou, sending Logan Wilson as the blitzer there. He bull rushed CJ Stroud, and they forced the fumble on it. I'm actually kind of looking at the stats right now in terms of the grading, but CJ Stroud had a really good game. 23 of 39, 356 pick and an interception. But when he was blitzed, his grade and his passing was a lot worse. 8 of 14, 122, a touchdown and a pick. I'm just surprised that, Lou didn't really see, that Stroud wasn't doing as good when they were sending blitzers.
Probably the worst part about that is that the coverage was so bad that you can't keep blitzing because your coverage was struggling so much.
Yeah, so that's where, the pass rush is kind of in the bad category because, they did make some plays where, they, where they effectively ended drives. But, at some points in the game, the sheer lack of pass rush really exposed the woes in the secondary. And I honestly put that more on Lou than I put it on the players. I know the players have to go out and play. But the fact that Lou didn't make any adjustments really, and we praise Lou all the time for making adjustments, but he didn't make any adjustments on what the Texans were trying to do, which is, deep in the pocket, play action, sending all of their speedy receivers on crossing routes. And, that just left the coverage exposed. The pass rush wasn't getting home. CJ Stroud was able to find an open guy, because he had so much time in the pocket at times. So I don't know, but when you were sending blitzers, then, he didn't have that time to throw, and, you forced mistakes out of him. So I don't know. I was kind of disappointed in Lou's game plan and in his adjustments for sure in the game.
Another one of the ugly for me is, and it's now been back-to-back not great performances for Alex Kappa. Yeah. He was the lowest graded offensive lineman, 48-4 by PFF. And I think he gave up 3 sacks.
Yeah. So to be fair, and we do expect a lot more out of Alex Kappa, but he has gone up against 2 pretty tough matchups past couple weeks.
Sheldon Rankins, we talked about it last week, is an elite defensive lineman.
Yeah. It's crazy he's still this good. He's been around the league for a while. So yeah, he had 2 pretty tough matchups in back-to-back weeks, but this is not the Alex Kappa that we're used to seeing. Usually I would say he's usually the most sure-handed guy on the offensive line.
Yes.
And, he's had a bad stretch the past 2 weeks. This was probably his worst game, as a Bengal. So, that was rough. Orlando Brown Jr., I kind of touched on this in the Houday Nation chat on Monday, but he had a really bad game. He gave up 8 pressures. Cordell gave up, I think, 5 pressures.
I did
offensive
find it
line in general was bad.
I did find it very interesting, and I agree with that. With what our good friend Tommy Lipscomb had put out, is pretty much saying that Orlando Brown is a probably average to below average left tackle when he has a crappy guard by him. But if he has a good guard by him, he is very, very good. Now, you could probably say that about a lot of tackles in this league if you put somebody who's really good next to them. But I think a lot of that goes into the question of is how much is Orlando covering for Cordell, or even if it's in the back of his mind that is allowing some of these pressures to come because he knows that he's having to worry about pressures from each side instead of just around the edge.
Yeah, it's very well a good talking point there with that. I swear we had this discussion last year with Jonah, and we wonder if that's what brought Jonah's grade down significantly, other than the dislocated kneecap he had to deal with for a lot of the year last year. But yeah, we were wondering how much of that it has to deal with him dealing with
if it says
that.
One thing, left guard is at the top of my list of needs next year.
Yeah, and that's a position you can easily fill in free agency. I think with somebody that's solid, it's not like left guards are demanding a lot of money.
Yeah, for relatively inexpensive, and everything goes for that. Do you have another ugly, or I have one more that I want to do before we start talking about the Ravens game tomorrow evening? Because my ugly is kind of going to be a little bit of a rant of sorts.
I'm going to go with second quarter off. Well, really, first half offense that wasn't the first drive. 4 3 and outs in a row is inexcusable. And, I know I said after the game I didn't really put this loss on Zach because the offense was, kind of putting they were bringing the ball down the field. They were putting up points. But you can't have these long lulls on offense where you're getting 4 3 and outs in a row. Now, one of those drives you can kind of attribute to the Tyler Boyd drop. I want to say that was the third 3 and out in a row where Burrow had Boyd for probably a solid 15, 20-yard game down the field, and Boyd dropped it. But other than that, you were just seeing, I don't know, you're just seeing absolute ineptitude on offense where they just couldn't get anything going. It reminded me a lot of, of how they were operating in the at the end of the Seahawks game and then throughout the whole Titans game. And you just can't be having that, those types of drives consecutively. That's just poor. So what are you going on a rant about?
That's kind of funny because what you're saying is almost not necessarily part of it, but it is kind of part of what I'm saying. Is I'm just the ugly goes to just the fans that whenever it's my least favorite kind of fan is we lost. It's the head coach's fault, and every team has it. And look, I get it that you're looking for somebody to blame, but the play that I saw keep coming up was the second down and goal. Where
yeah.
Now, and I think
Zach
what's even
Taylor did not call that play, everybody. Let's
correct.
Get that straight.
Correct. And I think if my memory's right, did you not say draw? Like did you?
Yeah, you can kind of see how spaced out the front four of the Texans
it was a check for Joe Burrow.
Yeah, you can
it just was a bad decision.
Yeah. And I don't even know if it was a bad decision either. I think the Texans just had it snuffed out. I think they had it in the back of their minds. They were like, okay, we're spaced out a little more on the front four. We know Joe's probably going to check to a draw, or there's a good chance Joe's going to check to the draw. And then I think Sheldon Rankins or Malik Collins just made a really good play on it. And kudos to the Texans. They handled Joe's scrambling ability really well. Usually he breaks a few draw plays, and he broke one, I think, in the third quarter. I think it was the first drive of the third quarter, or the second drive of the third quarter. That got him out of that 3 and out stretch. But yeah, Zach did not throw up. He did not call the draw play. That is always a check by Joe.
And even there were some complaints about how he handled that drive, and I think he handled it the right way. Is you want to put the ball on the ground somewhat because you're trying to force the Texans to call those timeouts because you are in field goal range. And that's why I just always hate that it is, to me, blaming the head coach every single time is a lazy excuse.
Now, I do think maybe they should have ran the ball on that first down. In
a way, they did.
What was the play again? No.
Well, they got sacked. So, in a way, they did.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's a good point. That's
That's why he took the sack, is they wanted to run play. They were trying to run the clock, right?
Yeah.
But I just, and that's why I really like our exercise here of the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we're going through multiple reasons as to why the defense stunk or why they lost the game. And for us is I just always hate it's Zach Taylor's fault. He's the worst. We should fire him. And then my favorite comment that I always see, and then I'm going to get off my soapbox because we have to talk about a big game tomorrow night, is the Bengals will never win a Super Bowl with Zach Taylor as a head coach. Mick, they were one play away from winning the Super Bowl with Zach Taylor as a head coach with Isaiah Prince as his right tackle.
Yeah.
Isaiah Prince.
And Hakeem Adeniji is your right guard, by the way.
Yes, I'm pretty sure I saw Isaiah Prince working in the gas station here locally. Like, I don't think he's in the league. And if he is, he's sure as heck not a starting right tackle. And the man was one play. So it just drives me crazy. Is Zach Taylor a perfect head coach? Of course not. Is he as bad as a lot of people say he is? Heck no. And the man should deserve a lot of credit because he's one play away. You know, if Aaron Donald was not Aaron Donald, maybe we could say if it was literally any other defensive lineman in football, the Bengals might have won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But Aaron Donald is Aaron Donald.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm done with my rant. I'm sorry about that. I need to get that off my chest.
One more poor, and I might have touched on this a little bit earlier, but tackling was pretty bad, especially late when you needed to contain the yardage of the Texans as much as you could to avoid them kicking a field goal or perhaps to have them kick a very long field goal. That play by Noah Brown where Nick Scott and Jermaine Pratt had him dead to rights, and it would have been a 50-plus yard field goal for a guy that the Texans just signed right off the streets, and Matt Amendola. That's inexcusable. That was like lose defenses don't usually do that. And I think I know I'm going to get on my soapbox on Nick Scott, but they have to. Please bench the man. Please.
There you go. There's your Nick Scott slander. Every episode has it. We just need to.
I am pleading to Lou. Please bench Nick Scott.
We just need to start a segment. Nick Scott slander.
Yeah.
Every week, we'll just give you 30 seconds just to say whatever you want about Nick Scott. And I'm sure Nick Scott's a nice guy. Pride of Penn State.
Is that where he went?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. That's
How about we talk about the Ravens coming up here tomorrow night? It's weird that we're having this podcast the day before a game, as it'll be a 8:15. So literally, Mick, in 24 hours from when we are recording this, the Bengals it'll be underway. You know, we'll be a couple of minutes into the game and so on from M&T Bank Stadium there in Baltimore, Maryland. Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit will be on the call. It'll be on Prime Video. And if you live in either the Baltimore or Cincinnati market, I know in Cincinnati, I believe it's going to be on ABC tomorrow. Okay. So that'll be on Channel 9 WCPO there in Cincinnati. So if you live locally and don't subscribe to Prime, you can watch it that way.
Can you still watch it if you subscribe to Prime and live in the area? Okay.
Yes.
I know there's been issues before with stuff.
Yes, I don't think that'll be an issue. Now, I don't live in the area, so it doesn't particularly affect me, but I can't imagine that it would be that. And I do know that Prime, if you go searching and if you don't subscribe to Amazon Prime, you can get a 30-day free subscription and just cancel it right after the game if you want to watch it that way, and then you get the game. So if you're looking for a way to watch,
or you keep it for 30 days and you watch the whole the boys real quick.
I haven't seen it. Okay,
I haven't seen it either. I heard it's really good. I'm gonna prop it up because I heard really good things about it. Not to get off topic.
Are you signing sponsorship deals?
No. Oh, also a really good show that me and Sam started this weekend, The Bear. You watched The Bear yet?
No. This time of year, I have no time to watch any TV.
Well, whenever March and April happen, get on it. It's on Hulu, by the way. Okay,
back to football. Okay. Your official for Thursday Night Football is...
Ooh, let me guess.
Okay, you don't know.
Hockey League.
They have had him this year.
Damn. Oh, they've already had this guy this year?
Yes.
Kemp. Alex Kemp.
They're 5-2-1 in games that he has reffed. He did the Seahawks game this year, the Buccaneers game last year, and was also involved in the tie against the Eagles.
Shoot, I can't even remember.
Adrian Hill.
Oh, I would
will be
never
the
have
official
guessed that.
for the Bengals against the Ravens tomorrow night. The injury report. Luckily, we can bring you an official injury report because it's come out because we're 24 hours until kickoff. For the Bengals, T. Higgins, Andre Yoshibach, and Sam Hubbard all out. Charlie Jones is questionable. At least he was listed. Now, I think, and the prime time aspect to when they have to, designate him to return as far as actually promoting him to the active roster, I don't really know when that happens because on a typical Sunday, they have to do it by 4 o'clock on Saturday. If that's the same thing and it had to be 4 o'clock today, they did not add Charlie Jones to the active roster, which means that he theoretically would not be able to play. Now, that very well, I don't really know the rule with primetime tomorrow, but Charlie Jones, they have him listed as questionable. And then full practice participants, Trey Hendrickson and Josh Tupou are back. So Charlie Jones is kind of the wild card with this, and I don't particularly know as to what he will be doing.
I would assume that he's probably going to play just because Yoshibach did not practice today. And
I don't know if they haven't added him to the active roster already that he'll be eligible to play.
So there's got to be a different rule for Thursday because if he was a full participant in practice and they're down 2 wide receivers, I just don't see why they wouldn't have activated him.
I'm not disagreeing at all, but it'll be something interesting to know that you'll have to find out early tomorrow. For the Ravens, Ronnie Stanley and Trenton Simpson are out. Marlon Humphrey is doubtful, which means he's out. It is so rare that a player who's doubtful, he didn't practice all week. He will not play. Questionable for the Ravens, Devin Duvernay. He's not practiced this week. It is listed as questionable. To me, that probably says that Devin Duvernay is not going to play tomorrow night for the Ravens. Now, the rest of these questionables were all full practice today, which to me on the other side says they will play. That's John Simpson, Kyle Van Noy, and Daryl Worley. So that's your
Morgan Moses, by the way.
I guess he's not on my list. Is he listed as questionable or is he good?
He was on the injury report, but I guess he's been a full participant in practice.
But so he's good as well.
So, yeah,
but still, so there you go. So for the Ravens, you're without, your starting left tackle and your best corner. In the Bengals, you're without your number 2 receiver and your best run defender. So it's kind of, I think in a way, those kind of things balance out. They're not the same positions, but they almost balance
the
out.
number 2 wide receiver?
The Bengals. I said the Bengals are without the number 2 wide receiver. In T. Higgins, and then Sam Hubbard is their best run defender.
Okay.
So let's jump into the game specifically. Bengals offense against a Ravens defense that I have their rankings. Are you ready for this, Mick?
Yeah.
First in scoring, second in overall yards, 4th against the pass, 11th against the run. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Now, if you want a positive, if you're trying to be the more optimistic guy, hobbled Joe Burrow, when they played back in week 2, was only sacked once.
Yeah.
And really, if you think back to that game, Mick, a really bad interception that he threw in the red zone was the difference in the game.
Yeah.
He doesn't throw that interception, the Bengals probably win with him on one leg.
Yeah. Now, let's be fair. The Ravens had a lot of people on the secondary that game.
They did. So it balances out.
Yep.
So I don't know. That might be me being more optimistic, but hey, I haven't still decided who I'm picking in this game. But for this offense against this defense, this is the best defense that they will face until week 18.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah, the Ravens, obviously have given up the least amount of points per game in the league. They have completely dominated opposing NFL offenses, and I mean, some of these are offenses that are pretty solid. They didn't really do that great against the Browns, gave up 33 points, and let a huge comeback happen from them. But the Lions have a good offense, and they completely held them in check. The
Are you
Seahawks
sure
had to
that
do.
wasn't a local high school team that instead came in and played that day for the Lions?
I put money on them, so it probably was. Um, they
Yeah,
probably
that
snuck them in. They were like, "Oh, they mixed betting on us." Yeah, well, Detroit
we'll let
High
the
School, Detroit
Detroit
Mercy
Metro,
University, come in
Detroit
and
Mercy
play.
University, yes.
See, they played the Seahawks, held them to 37-3. I mean, they've looked really good. Now, their defense didn't look that great against the Browns. They gave up. They were up 2 scores going into the second half, I believe, and the Browns led a pretty huge comeback against them. And I'm wondering if there's a little bit of a trend line that we're maybe seeing with this Ravens team, because they did this an awful lot last year, and they did it an awful lot late into the season. Um, there's always that meme that shows the Ravens scores like in the third quarter, and they're always up by 2 scores, and they ended up losing every one of those games. I kind of wonder if we're going to potentially see that. It's not like we've seen Lamar, light the world on fire the last few weeks. He's proven to be, I know you're not a big Lamar guy, but he's kind of in that Lamar slump, that midseason slump that, you know, typically ends with him getting injured, and then Tyler Huntley plays the rest of the season. Now, I'm not forecasting a Lamar
Where's
injury,
Josh
but
Johnson?
where's Josh Johnson? Where's Anthony Brown?
I'm sure
Like
Anthony
Anthony
Brown's
Brown.
still there. He's probably still in their practice squad. He's got to be.
Josh Johnson's on some NFL
Oh,
team somewhere. I
the
don't
man
know.
will never retire.
But yeah, it's just weird that history might, I'm not, it's too early to tell yet, but history could be repeating itself a little bit. I'm hoping.
Yeah,
So
I mean, the defense is really good, but it's one of those things that I think it's not like this defense is to the point where this Bengals offense shouldn't be able to do something with it. Now, to me, the biggest wild card of that game that they played back in week 2 was who had the best game on the offense?
T
Higgins, who will
Yep.
not be playing tomorrow.
T Higgins.
Now, does that worry you more than it maybe should?
I mean, it depends on what the game plan is for Jamar, right? Because I feel like, with the way they defended Jamar in that week 2 game, they doubled and tripled him, so much that, I mean, T was left open, fairly often in the game. So, T being out is, you definitely would want that, but Marlon Humphrey's out, so it's not like the Ravens have their number one corner at their disposal, and we've kind of said this before, is if they lack depth in anywhere in their roster, it's at cornerback. So I'm assuming Rock Ya-Sin's probably gonna play, and then you've got Brandon Stevens, who the Bengals have take advantage of that matchup before. They're pretty good on the back end, though, with Kyle Hamilton, Geno Stone, and Marcus Williams, at the safety positions. So I'm not too worried about it. If Marlon Humphrey was playing, I would be a little concerned. So.
Let's shift gears here and let's talk about the Bengals defense against this Ravens offense. Let's take you back to week 2. To me, here are a couple of the big stats from that game. A positive-ish. Held Mark Andrews to 5 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. I mean, that considering what Mark Andrews has done to the Bengals and what tight ends have done, if you tell me that's his line tomorrow, I'd probably almost say, okay. I'd almost take that in a way. Now, I'd probably like to not have that touchdown, but still. Ravens, 4.8 yards a rush. Gus Edwards, 6.2 yards a carry. Lamar, 4.5. That's probably another one of those stats that if I told you Lamar is going to rush for 4.5 yards a carry tomorrow night, I'd probably say, okay, Okay. Like I'd want that number to be a little bit lower, but it could be a whole heck of a lot higher. And then the other stat that to me is the key tonight, and I know you'll get to your keys a little bit later on, but is my big key, and I'm sure it's going to be on yours as well. The Bengals only registered one quarterback hit in that game week 2. Do that again, and the Ravens are winning.
And I think, if I remember correctly, Ronnie Stanley was also out that game as well. Yeah.
He was.
They've got a really good offensive line. That's a matchup I'm kind of concerned about is this pass rush against their offensive line. Not only because we saw what it looked like in week 2, which, didn't really amount to much, but, you are dealing with a potentially hobbled Trey Hendrickson with the hyperextended knee. Sam Hubbard's obviously not going to play. So you're kind of running out of depth on the edges there. And then I think the Ravens might be strongest up the middle, So
Zeitler, Linderbaum.
The one that got away, Kevin Zeitler. Linderbaum, and then I think John Simpson, if I remember correctly. If he we said he was playing, right?
He is.
Yes.
Well, he's questionable, but he was a full participant in practice today.
Okay. Illness. Yeah, he's good, I would say. So they're a really good offensive line. I don't know if the Bengals have really taken advantage of good offensive lines, or if they've really won against good offensive lines in terms of their pass rush. It seemed like they've been going up pretty inept on offensive lines the entirety of the season, other than the first Ravens matchup and the Texans matchup, the Browns matchup. But they also they looked okay in that game, but it's not like they did enough to make a difference, right? So that does kind of worry me a little bit.
To me, here's the biggest X factor too, as well as that game, is it's somebody that you've mentioned a couple of times. No Sam Hubbard. That's your best run defender. What do the Ravens do extremely well?
Run the ball.
That's what worries me the most going into this game, is if Sam Hubbard was playing, my confidence level would go from like here to like here. Now, I'm not using any as far as, but that would bring my confidence level up. Honestly, in a way, other than Burrow, I don't know that there's anybody that I'd want more on the field for tomorrow night's game than Sam Hubbard.
Yeah, no, he's huge against the run, and that's something the Ravens offense does really well. They definitely, I know we talked about containing Lamar to 4.5 yards a carry, but they still gave up 4.8 in total against the Ravens. Gus Edwards had a pretty good game running the ball.
6.2 yards a carry for Gus.
And now they have their secret weapon that I've never even heard of until a couple weeks ago, that Keaton Mitchell guy. I think they're going to have their hands full. And I think, it's funny. We talked about the Texans game. I think the Texans ran a very similar game plan to what the Ravens ran in week 2. And the Ravens have already done it before. And it's also very worrisome for me, is that, obviously the Bengals haven't been able to stop on defense a certain type of game plan, which is, keep your quarterback in the pocket, roll them out, run a lot of play action, and just send everybody on crossing routes. And, those are probably 2 of their worst games that they've played this year. So I don't know. The good thing about this matchup, though, in terms of, running the wide receivers on a bunch of cross routes, is that I'm not nearly as scared of this group of playmakers than I was against Houston last week. And
I think honestly, Duvernay not being there, for being a guy that's not it's not like Devin Duvernay scares you. No. But at the same time, I feel like he's always good in Bengals games for one big play when he plays the Bengals.
Yeah.
One big play. And so you're telling me that I get one less big play? That could be the difference in the game, is not having a guy like Devin Duvernay tomorrow night.
Yeah. And then, you've got 2 decent wide receivers, or, 2 decent receivers you have to take account for. The Texans, I feel like you had 3 or 4. you've got Zay Flowers, who is pretty much like Tank Dell, except he's got a little more bulk to him. And then you got Mark Andrews, who, the Bengals were, they proved to be able to contain in week 2. Now, I mean, he's still an elite tight end, and he could go off at any moment. And the Bengals have typically not been that great against tight ends this year, across the board. But yeah, the receivers for the Ravens don't necessarily scare me, so I don't know if we'll see the same coverage woes, but it all kind of depends on the pass rush that they're able to give.
Should we have my stats about this game now, or do you want to give your keys? Should I do my stats before the pick?
Go ahead and do the stats.
Okay. Do you want happy stat or sad stat first? I've got one of each.
Let's go sad first. I'm in a sad mood.
And I think that you probably know the way that I'm going. We're talking about the Bengals at the Ravens on Thursday Night Football. The Cincinnati Bengals are 0-12 in their last 12 games on the road in prime time.
Wow.
There you go. There's something that makes you feel real good. Joe Burrow is 0-4 in his road primetime games in his career.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
0-4 in road primetime games in his career. Are you ready for the positive stats? Something that makes you feel good. Because that's what we're here on Jungle Juices, to try and make you feel a little bit optimistic. The Baltimore Ravens are 3.5-point favorites tomorrow night at home. Joe Burrow as an underdog of 3 points or more since 2021. Are you ready for this, Mick? Against the spread, 12-0-1. Straight up 10-3. Again, Joe Burrow is an underdog of 3 or more since 2021, which tomorrow night is one of those. 12-0-1 against the spread, 10-3 straight up.
He really loves being the underdog.
He does.
He's a big fan of it.
And I guess Jared says that doesn't count the playoffs then in that road primetime. They haven't played any road primetime games technically in the playoffs.
Well, every playoff game's a primetime game, right?
Yeah, I guess in its own realm, but I kind of count the primetime as night games. But no, this does not count those, because I don't think any of those games were true night games.
Who against on the road regular season primetime game? I'm trying to think of these because
Browns in 2020.
Okay, yeah.
You had okay. Now you're going to put me on the spot. Ravens last year.
Yes.
On Sunday Night Football.
Browns Halloween last year.
Correct. And there's one more in there. Road versus Tennessee, if my memory's right, was like a 4:00 game, though, was it not, Mick? Well, not that it really matters in the playoffs. I think it was like a 4:00 game. And
I think he's talking about the playoff games here.
Yes, he is.
Fourth game. Do you know the fourth game? I can't even remember.
No, it's I'm old, and I've slept since the last time that they had a primetime game on the road. It has to have, I guess, been 2021, maybe, or 2020. I don't know. And my stat could have been wrong, too. I was reading it from someone else and trusting it. But still, Joe Burrow has not won a road primetime game. We can think about that later as we go along. There might have been a Steelers. No? Because Steelers Monday night was 2020, and that was at home.
2020.
I don't
know. Yeah, I'm stumped on that.
Game. How about this? Yeah. I'll try to do some searching while you give us your keys to the game.
Yeah. So we'll talk about offense here. I think the biggest key to the game is just getting more consistent and having more consistent drives on offense. It kind of proved in the Houston game, those 4 straight 3-and-out drives and 6 straight punts, that really dug them into, really kind of dug them into a hole where they were down by 2 scores in the third quarter. Now they did manage to come back because the offense was, able to pull some miracle plays, later on in the game. But against a defense that's as good as Baltimore's, you have to see more consistency on offense, and you have to see them put together, scoring drives on a fairly constant basis. So, and then the other key to the offense is just having a clean game. The Ravens defense, it is really good, but I think it's a defense that the Bengals are able to manage. Now they do have a very good linebacking duo in Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen. But their coverage unit doesn't necessarily scare me. I still think they're, Marlon Humphrey being out's going to be huge. And then their pass rush hasn't been that great either. So, I mean, if you can find a way to game plan around Roquan Smith and what he does, oh no.
Oh no.
My computer decided to update.
Well, I can still hear you.
You can?
I can.
Well, this is weird.
Well, just keep talking and get in what you can before your computer might
before
completely
it goes
shut
away.
off.
Defense. As I said before, the Ravens or the Texans ran a similar game plan to what the Ravens did in week 2, and the Bengals couldn't stop it again. They're going to have to find a way to manage around that game plan. I wonder if Lou probably needs to run more press man on defense and trust his defensive backs a little bit more. And then they've got to find a way to get some pressure on Lamar and force him to make some mistakes. And it's not like Lamar is coming off, a great 3-game stretch. He's been pretty pedestrian the past 3 weeks. So those are the key to victories. And before I boot myself out of here to try to get my computer back running, I'm going to go Bengals 20, Ravens 17.
Mick's going with the Bengals. As his pick.
I'll try
for the
to get
game.
back in a second here, Sam.
Okay, so you're going to leave me alone here while I give my pick for this game, and you're going to make me be the bad guy all by myself. I respect it because I am picking the Baltimore Ravens. I can't do it. I want to. I really do. The pro stats want me to pick them, but I'm going to have to pick the Bengals to win the game. The Ravens to win the game by a final score of, I'm going to go 23-17.
Okay, similar scores.
Yes, it's just I think the Ravens will come away on top. I really want to. I want to pick them. Like, I want to pick the Bengals, but it's just, to me, the reason why I'm picking the Ravens is Sam Hubbard. Is not having him. I feel like he could be such the difference maker that would make me change my mind and pick the Bengals in this game. But because of that, and plus I hope I'm wrong next week and I can put my foot in my mouth next Wednesday when we're back together again and we've had almost a week to let this game go by. I still think that you're going to see the Ravens win the game.
So,
and I hope I'm wrong.
My computer didn't actually update, so we're back in here. I want to bring up another reason why I think the Bengals will win. And I've said this to you before, it seems like anytime they find themselves in a must-win, their backs against the wall scenario, they end up doing what they need to do to win the game. They did it constantly last year after, falling a few games out of first place in the division against the Ravens, and they found themselves 4-4, 5-4 last year. They rattled off 9 wins in a row against a very tough back end of the schedule, and it ended up winning the division. And and you saw them kind of do the same thing in 2021 when they were also 5-4, and then 6-5, and they end up doing what they need to do to win the division that year. I'm not saying the Bengals are necessarily going to win the division this year just because of how tough the AFC North is. Even though you did just get a little bit of a break with the Deshaun Watson injury, but they've proven to be able to win these must-win games. The Arizona game, the Seattle game, the LA game. I mean, hell, the San Fran game might have been in the must-win category too.
I do agree with Jared here. I think turnover differential is going to be a stat at the end of the day I'm going to look at.
It's going to be huge.
And which quarterback is going to make the mistake? You think Lamar both quarterbacks threw really bad interceptions in that primetime game that they played last year in Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Burrow, Patrick Queen came out he threw it right to Patrick Queen. He just didn't see Patrick Queen on the play. I think it was after a turnover or something. If my memory's right, it's been long since that game, But that was a huge turning point in the game where the Bengals had a sense of momentum, and then Burrow immediately threw the pick to Patrick Queen on the next play. And then Lamar completely or it might have been on fourth down, maybe the play that I'm thinking about, that Lamar completely overthrew a receiver deep down the field that was wide open down the right sideline, which in a way I guess is pretty much a turnover because he would have had a touchdown or a first down on the play.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm excited to watch this game. There was a chance a couple of weeks ago that I wasn't going to be able to watch this game live and was going to have to do my whole, keep my phone locked into a safe and not look at it. So I actually get to watch live, which I'm very excited
Thursday
about.
Night games always get you.
They do.
Until now.
It is wild how it has almost always been these Thursday night games that they just come back to bite me in the butt. I think Jared's right here. Lamar's fumbled 10 times and lost 6. He fumbled once in week 2, but they did recover it. And that is going to be huge. Is Lamar, that's why that pass rush is so important, to put pressure on him and make him fumble the football.
Yeah. I want to see Lou dial up the blitz a little bit more.
I hope so.
I think
make Lamar beat you with his arm.
Yeah.
Make Lamar beat you with his arm in this game, because if it's a passing game, then I feel pretty good about the Bengals' chances, because Joe Burrow is an infinitely times better passer than Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
I appreciate everyone for tuning in on tonight's episode of Jungle Juice. Remember, we're back here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. Make sure you like us on our Facebook page, the Jungle Juice Facebook. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel at Jungle Juice. And also, we want to tell you to follow our good buddy Josh Isles over at WDN Today on his Facebook page. We also are on all of your favorite podcast platforms: iHeart, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all of them. You can subscribe there so they automatically get downloaded to your phone. And in case you miss anything, you can listen back there and hear all of our fantastic and original thoughts on the Cincinnati Bengals, because nobody has ever said things like the Bengals defense sucked against the Texans. That's what people come here for, Mick.
I'm pretty sure everybody has said that. That's a part of the football media landscape, or the Bengals media landscape.
We're good at that, though. We can bring it. We can bring you the obvious and sometimes the unobvious that we might bring you. Mick, it's been fun as always. Hopefully for a big win tomorrow, and hopefully you're right and I'm wrong.
Yep. I always hope that. Unless if I choose Bengals to lose, then I don't hope that. But
I believe we did that once, I think, this year, where I picked a win and you picked a loss. It was the Cardinals.
It was the Cardinals.
It was, and hey, it worked out that time. So maybe, you know what? If it works out again, then maybe we just need to plan out and one of us take one for the team every week.
I'm
okay with that. I'm okay with that if that's what it takes. So we'll see everybody back here next Wednesday. Hopefully you enjoy the game on Prime tomorrow night. So until next time, I'm Sam Gormley and he's Mick Nelson. Hoo day.
Thanks for watching, guys.